A couple of points of interest about Esther. First of all, she was an orphan. Secondly, she lived in an ordinary life. But God's hand was upon her. He was preparing her for something to bring about the triumph of good over evil. I want you to understand her past and her present life didn't stop the Lord from giving her favor to stay focused on the task and to move forward in the process. The issue was Haman. Haman hated the Jews, and he wanted to annihilate them from the youngest to the oldest, men, women, and children, and destroy all that they owned and all that they had. Church, anti-Semitism is not just something that happened today. It's been happening since the inception of the Jewish people. Seeing what was happening to Mordecai, Mordecai cried out to God for help, and he noticed that help would come from Esther in this situation. Another point about Esther's life in relation to our lives is when you choose to follow and live for God, remember that nothing is coincidental. Think about it, friend. Esther was living at that time in this huge city because if she had not done what God had called her to do, the Jewish people could have experienced devastation beyond Hitler's Nazi regime. But God used Esther to turn the tables on those who wanted to destroy the Jewish people. If you're going to move forward, you must be willing to take a risk. Mordecai reminded Esther that even though she was queen, her future would be no better than that of the rest of the Jews if she didn't capitalize on the opportunity in talking to the king. Mordecai understood that if you don't take a risk, you can never expect to rise to the occasion. Esther knew God was in her situation. All he needed was a willing vessel to move, and when he wanted her to go, even if that meant taking a risk in the eyes of others. One thing that helped Esther to be focused was that she was obedient to do whatever was asked of her. She understood that a disobedient heart will always cause things to be hindered in one's life. Listen to what she did in Esther 4:14 through 17. In verse 14 it says, "If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for such a time as this?" Verse 15, then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, "Go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days or nights or days. My maids and I will do the same. And then even though this is against the law, I will go and see the king. If I must die, I must die." So Mordecai went away and did everything as Esther had ordered him. Esther had to be willing to risk her life to save the lives of others. She was willing to take a risk than just sit idle doing nothing. And if you're going to move forward in the remainder of this year and beyond, you need to only remember to take a risk, but understand that God's timing is always perfect, even when you face obstacles. One of the main reasons we never go forward is that many of us don't like obstacles. The most common reason we don't go through the door that God may be preparing for us is calling us to go to is because of fear, like the fear of failing or the fear of not looking good or the fear of just being a failure. Other obstacles might be pride or making excuses or lies or selfish motives, not trusting in God or not staying focused on what God is preparing for you. Even though Esther wasn't as discerning until she became queen, Mordecai was with her to help her. And she eventually understood and learned that timing was everything, especially when it came to her decision making. Esther followed through on Mordecai's advice and experienced many rewards from her risk. Even though she faced obstacles like what to say, what not to say, when to be patient and when to go forward, she came to an understanding that God's timing was always perfect, even when she faced obstacles, even when trying to tell the king to change his decree. Listen to what she said and did in Esther 5:3 through 8. Then the king asked her, "What do you want, Queen Esther? What is your request? I will give it to you, even if it is half the kingdom." And Esther replied, "If it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come today to a banquet I have prepared for the king." The king turned to his attendants and said, "Tell Haman to come quickly and to be at a banquet, as Esther has requested." So the king and Haman went to Esther's banquet, and while they were drinking wine, the king said to Esther, "Now tell me what you really want. What is your request? I will give it to you, even if it's half the kingdom." Esther replied, "This is my request and deepest wish. If I have found favor with the king, and if it pleases the king to grant me my request and do what I ask, please come with Haman tomorrow to the banquet I will prepare for you. Then I will explain what this is all about." Next Tuesday, December 1st, we will conclude our series on Esther by looking at steps you must make to remain focused. God bless you and have a great week and a wonderful Thanksgiving with your family and friends. We love you and God bless you.